Hey dark-themed comics fans! Are you ready to take your love for comics and pop culture to the next level? Introducing DTC Shop, your ultimate destination for custom-designed t-shirts and awesome digital comics. Whether you're into horror icons, anime legends, or the dark and gritty world of the boys, we've got something for every fan. Our high-quality, 100% cotton tees let you wear your fandom with pride, while our digital comics bring you epic stories you'll be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. So why wait? Head over to DTC Shop now and gear up with the coolest merch and some of the most underrated comics in the game. Because being a fan isn't just a hobby, it's a lifestyle. And now, our feature presentation. 30 Days of Night is a groundbreaking comic book miniseries first published in 2002 by IDW Publishing, created by writer Steve Niles and artist Ben Templesmith. The series redefined the vampire genre, blending elements of horror and suspense within a unique setting. Barrow, Alaska, a small town plunged into darkness for 30 consecutive days during the winter solstice. This premise set the stage for a chilling vampire invasion, where bloodthirsty creatures could prey on the town's inhabitants without the fear of daylight. Steve Niles initially conceived the story as a film pitch, but after facing rejection from several studios, he turned to comics as a medium to tell the tale. He partnered with Australian artist Ben Templesmith, whose stark, nightmarish illustrations helped create a cold, eerie atmosphere that perfectly matched the story's tone. 30 Days of Night was originally released as a 3-issue limited series, but its impact was immediate. The comic stood out from the usual superhero fare of the time, offering readers a fresh take on vampires that was dark, brutal, and deeply atmospheric. Thanks to its success, 30 Days of Night helped to establish IDW Publishing as a major player in the comic book industry. Due to its popularity, the original miniseries spawned several sequels and spin-offs, further expanding the story of Barrow and the vampire onslaught. Among these notable entries is 30 Days of Night, Dark Days, a direct sequel where the protagonist, Stella Olomouc, travels to Los Angeles to expose the vampire threat, as well as Return to Barrow, a continuation that revisits the haunting location from the original series. The franchise extended beyond comics with several novelizations and crossovers, including a notable crossover with the sci-fi classic The X-Files in 2010. The success of the series cemented Steve Niles as a notable horror writer, and Ben Templesmith's art became synonymous with the tone and aesthetic of the franchise. The comic's cinematic would not go unnoticed for much longer, as in 2007, 30 Days of Night was adapted into a major Hollywood film directed by David Slade and produced by Sam Raimi's Ghost House Pictures. Starring Josh Hartnett and Melissa George, the movie followed the original storyline of savage vampires attacking Barrow, Alaska, during its month-long darkness. While the film took certain liberties with the source material, it was largely faithful to the comic and received praise for its intense atmosphere, striking visuals, and brutal depiction of vampires. The film was well received by horror fans and grossed over $75 million worldwide, leading to a direct-to-video sequel in 2010 with 30 Days of Night, Dark Days, which adapted the storyline of Stella Olomouc seeking vengeance for the events of the original. 30 Days of Night is known for its distinct portrayal of vampires, returning to the creature's terrifying, predatory roots. The vampires of this series are primal, savage, and unrelentingly violent, in stark contrast to the romanticized, more humanized depictions that were common in vampire fiction at the time. These monsters don't seek to seduce, they exist to kill and feed in the most brutal ways possible. The harsh, isolated Alaskan setting played a key role in building tension. With the 30-day-long night, the series creates an environment where escape is impossible and the sense of dread grows with each passing hour. This claustrophobic feeling, combined with the raw terror of the vampire's relentless attacks, made the series stand out in the horror genre. One cannot discuss 30 Days of Night without giving credit to Ben Templesmith's highly stylized, atmospheric art. His use of murky colors, jagged lines, and distorted figures created a sense of chaos and terror on every page. His visuals conveyed the hopelessness of Barrow's inhabitants as they faced a nightmarish battle for survival. Templesmith's art became iconic in its own right, setting the visual tone for future installments and helping establish a distinctive look for horror comics of that era. 30 Days of Night remains a landmark series in horror comics, credited with helping revive the horror genre in the medium in the early 2000s. It paved the way for other similarly dark and experimental works, including titles like The Walking Dead and Lock and Key. Steve Niles and Ben Templesmith continued to collaborate on various projects following the success of 30 Days of Night, and their influence on the horror genre remained strong. In 2017, a reboot of the original 30 Days of Night series was released by IDW Publishing, with writer Steve Niles returning alongside artist Piotr Kowalski. This series reimagined the original story for a new generation of readers while retaining the core horror and tension that made the original such a success. 30 Days of Night stands as a modern horror classic in the world of comics. Its unique blend of raw terror, primal vampires, and the unforgiving Alaskan setting captured the imagination of readers and critics alike, catapulting it to international acclaim. For fans of horror, vampires, or simply great storytelling, 30 Days of Night is a must-read series that continues to influence the genre across comics, film, and beyond. Its lasting appeal is a testament to the power of well-executed horror in comics.